keep in mind at the time this is all from the same bog that's not noticed till the 19 or 1850s.
Is this the right thing? I don't know if I got
Yeah,
what you got.
that's it. That's the
Okay.
that's two. You don't need to bring up one or maybe you do. Yeah, that is it. That's it. Only it would just be turned on the side. But yeah, so that's what you're looking at, and we have to like come to the conclusion like, is this legit or is it not legit?
Oh, I
And it,
see. It's got runes on it, right? I see
yeah, there's runes on it for
right.
sure.
I see a Fehu. Yeah, and it's interesting. It's like it's written in two directions. Like it's running one way and then the other, up and down the spine of it.
Mhm.
Yep.
So then, if you just type in
What's
two
important
Chapes,
about these is they're claimed to be like some of the oldest
this is like the
artifacts
Eldar
with the Elder
Futhark,
Futhark. Yeah.
but not
Okay.
noticed before the 1850s.
Right.
So it's not noticed in any other period when it was supposed to exist until my concerns with the archaeological people.
Right.
Right.
Now, if you
The same holes in it too. They look like they're about the same size as the ones that were in the comb for the 3 sections. Each had a hole on top.
oh yeah,
So maybe
that's
are they trying to, if it's a
yeah,
forgery,
they could have
they're
been
trying to
used
make
with
sure
the same tool actually, if it's real.
right. That's one thing that looks the same that I would say, unlike the chicken scratch.
It'd be cool to. Do we know what what it says allegedly? Like, I got my runes book here. I could try to
According
sound
to
it out.
Wikipedia, it says possibly Mariha or Makija. Possibly Mari, the famous one, is the sword of Allah.
Oh,
Oh, really?
wow.
That's what it says on Wikipedia, according to, on this Vimose Chapes.
Wow.
Mari and Allah. Okay.
It's actually Mario's sword. He's a time traveler. He's like, I put this in here, bitches. I just wanted to test you to see if you're paying attention.
But you know, like if it was in the realm of forgery, that's the kind of thing they would put on it, and they would be like laughing about it.
Right. Well,
What does it mean? You know
Whoever
what I
they
mean?
is,
Like
I'm not trying to make
even
it all
the
about a
status
they,
quo
but like
can't.
you know, that is it's kind of funny because we're looking at Mari and Allah. It's like, you know, God and goddess right there.
And what were the Maori? Those are those Mauritania.
uh-huh. You know, one other thing, all of these are hair artifacts, and you know, the hair is considered in many cultures still today.
No,
to
this
be
is a
like,
sword. This is a sword pommel.
oh, this is the handle of a sword.
Yeah, but still, I want to hear what you're about to say
Like the
with
pommel,
the
the
hair
flat part on the
artifact.
bottom of the hilt.
Yeah, well, the hair artifacts are like the hair is believed to be like the your history, your ancestors, your past. You know, some people still think that it's like, you know, dead brain cells. And in like, you know, Rasta culture, they believe that the wiser you are, the more hair you have, and you don't want to get rid of your hair because you would be shedding your wisdom. You know, like Samson, he becomes weak when he loses his hair, and I've even heard that. And I don't think this is across the board, but I think there are some sects of Rasta faith that they actually believe that they will be pulled up by their dreadlocks in the end days. And so the stronger the dreads, the better chance that you have to hold on when Jaja come take you away.
So what you just said there might be a key to diffusion, because the long hair is also sacred to like the Japanese, right? Like the samurai, like that was like really bad to get your hair cut off, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
Totally. Yes.
It's like really degrading. So what if
Yeah,
there
if
is
you were like exiled or dishonored, you cut off the top knot, right? We've all seen the samurai movies,
Right? Of course.
So
you know,
if you just
another
type that
so what I'm
same
going to say
thing,
about the possibility of, you know, there could be sort of like a middle ground between fake and real in the sense that maybe not as old as they're said to be, or that it's a real artifact, but then someone scratched the runes on there. And we
Right.
have to consider that as possible too. I mean, we're not making claims about any of this. We're just opening up a dialogue and asking questions about, like, we're just looking at what some of the oldest claims are to this particular script. And I think there's a huge motivation to, especially in the last couple hundred years, to do some kind of big discovery, even at the cost of honesty. You know, this is, if you can make a discovery that supports what the rest of academia is saying about a particular people or culture, it's like your ticket into the history books, your ticket into tenure. it's really a big deal. So imagine, I just been putting myself in the shoes of being some kind of like researcher, archaeologist type, been grinding for years, getting no recognition, not, and the temptation to do just like, you believe it,
Just
you
Just give me
believe that something like what you made up could actually have existed. So you're like, it's only kind of a lie, like they really were a people here and they really did use this language and they really had, artifacts like this. So I'm only slightly being dishonest. Like I can just see the motivation to get a little clout for just a slight transgression of honesty in their mind, to me, it's not that big of a stretch of the imagination. So it's not that that any of this stuff is useless to look at. It's just worth keeping that in the back pocket with most historical artifacts. Yeah.
Well, I think everybody in this space we're over the last 10 years, we've really uncovered some lies that we didn't even realize how bad the lies are. And now with that mindset, a lot of us are turning to history and realizing, oh, this is not just the phenomena of the modern era. Like they've been doing really bad, big lies for a long time. And what is it for? Like the reason I don't get emotional about this stuff is because I set out with the understanding that it might be possible that everything I've ever looked at was within the framework of the lie. And what got me on that was when I was reading the Greek stuff and seeing it translated in English and going, why does it match up to English so well? Even with like the rhymes and all this stuff. And I'm just like, something feels real off about this.
Yeah, when things rhyme.
It was like a chicken, Patrick Teller. They found like a chicken leg. They were like, it's a fucking
The dude who came up with the T-Rex was just slightly stretching the truth. I'm not saying that any level of lying is any less of a, transgression against natural law than slight or large, but I'm just putting myself in the mind, of one of these potential archaeologists, and there's a big temptation there. I think
you're right.
Chance, can you just put number 2 in the same thing that you wrote, but get the other pommel just so they can see that?
Yeah. This one's very small too. It's like less than 10 centimeters. I've already got it pulled up on my other window. Here we go.
So that gives them a foot into some form of immortality. If you can have your name kept on the books for even for whatever period of time, and that's what's fascinating is how history is an avenue to immortality, and they're long gone by the time we realize that they were fucking with us.
Well, and the whole system of authority as truth rather than truth as the authority that we've been indoctrinated into as a civilization for God knows how long means that so much of this stuff can fly under anybody's radar, get established, and then more things get established on that. It's like if you build a foundation on a bad foundation, like bad foundation, house of sand, whatever, that's how it seems to be with history for sure. And there's also, this is going to be more of a far out conjecture, but I sometimes wonder about whether or not things are found because they're being looked for, not even in necessarily a disingenuous way, but like I really like fringe stuff. So the whole idea of like psychic archaeology is potentially like some of those accounts are also fraudulent, but that what the earth actually turns up, whenever what's in the box, is the cat alive or dead? That there's some level of because I really think this is a mental realm we're in. And also I think that it's a plane of, as Topher likes to put it, like this is the plane where people get what they want. They get what they wish, whether for good or bad. And so is the whole function of the past, as we consider it, kind of illusory, and it's in a type of flux as much as the future, and what we look for and what we expect to find also flavors what we find to some degree. I know that's like very wishy-washy and it's not something you can really plant a flag in, but I consider that possibility because my dad is a professional treasure hunter actually. And he finds stuff because like he has this sort of childlike exploration mindset in how he's doing it. And it's, I don't know, he's able to sort of just manifest what it is he's wishing to find, and he does. And I wonder what that has into play with things like the past being kind of as mutable or illusion as much as the future is not real yet. That there's this present moment reality, and we're all trying to find needles in haystacks, expecting that there's some sort of solid. We're trying to find the canvas that all the universe is painted on, and we keep pulling things off, clearing things out of the way, and it's just a mirror. It's like there's nothing there. That's all in my head too. I know that's more, flimsy and all that.
I have no counter to that.
That's good. I have an addition, perhaps. I have an addition. Think about bogs in general, right? Why are they suddenly finding things in bogs that they weren't finding? I mean, it's a crapshoot, like you were saying. But I'm always thinking about the way where what we see growing up. If anyone watched Labyrinth, there's the bog of eternal stench, right? And you wouldn't dream of ever daring to go near that thing, right? But if you had no idea what a bog really was, and then suddenly you're presented with the idea of searching for things in bogs, you're probably not wanting to do it anymore because you watched this movie and they as usual, the narrative tells you it's a terrible idea. Stay away from bogs,
Loch Ness.
The bog witch.
Right, the bog witch. Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking of the C to G thing, bog and bach.
Guys, that sounds like a monster that a witcher might come across. And I think one of the things people don't like about us is to speak in metaphor or in allegories. We survived the trials of the grasses. So now we're witchers and we see the monsters. We can go into the houses of God and we see the monsters, and the rest of the people can't see what we're seeing. And the monsters know that we can see them, and they know that we're witchers. So what they have to do is they have to steer perception and make us the bad guys for questioning the narrative. We're the crazy ones. We're the conspiracy theorists. When we're just literally trying to help people,
we're the
take out the
grifters.
monsters. Yeah. And so that's what I really loved those book series, because I felt like, The Witcher, he takes out all these monsters, but the people don't appreciate them.
You read the actual books?
Oh yeah, the video games were the best, dude.
Dude,
I hated I hated how the book series ended.
Real man's fantasy, Dylan.
I love it.
The Witcher book series. Maybe you guys have seen the Satanic Cuties Flick show. Maybe you played the actually good game series, but the books, man, they are something else. People should read the Witcher novels. Just leaving that out there. Go do that.
I didn't like how they made him simp after a prostitute. She was and what happens? He dies. Not to spoil it for people. The last book is it's almost like a different author wrote it. I did not like how it concluded, but he dies. I don't like how he died. I don't think he broke the code. He took a side in Empire, and he died in battle fighting for one of the sides of the Empire. And so I do like that about it, because it shows you're a witcher. Before everything else, guys, you can't get caught up in the government and stuff and the priests. You can move between everybody. You can be friends with everybody. Provided that they're maintaining some sort of socially calibrated code of honor, but you can't take sides, because that once you take a side, there's no going back from that.
Yeah,
that is so true in these type of studies as well. That you take a side in the form of take on an identity. I'm this, I'm that, and that it's gonna cause bridges to get burned someday. It's going to cause feelings to get hurt. It's going to cause cognitive dissonance if something gets interrupts what you thought your identity meant. And at the end of the day, what is it worth? Is it really worth it to hold this label of I am a whatever? I know we're calling ourselves witchers, but that's just a metaphor.
That's just an analogy. Yeah, we're not actually.
We're not.
I mean, maybe Gabe actually's got some Savanti. He's got might be some yellow cat-like eyes under there.
I just think the four of us could probably, George could be our bard.
Nice.
Yeah, for real.
We could probably.
I'm in.
We could do a troupe. We could totally do
Oh man, that'd be sick. I think that brings up an interesting point too, is that only the very, very best and potentially slightly luckiest storytellers can actually end something. It is a major issue with movies and books. Endings can be They either have to do that perfect Hollywood ending right at the end. You get the kiss at the sunset, and everything's great. You know, you murdered the bad guy. Everyone clapped in the theater. What does that do to your culture, right? And then so many books, so many novels, they just seem to kind of just right at the end, they just cram it. I got to end this thing. All right, it's over. I hit my 500-page quota. I'm good. The endings are a huge issue.
That's such a good point. Like, I'm going to dig
Maybe
it out of my notes,
realism
but like,
falls apart because there's no such thing as the end in reality.
Yeah, right. We're ending these things.
Right. And that's been a big topic lately. Like, you know, Chance and I were talking a week ago about how the culture of miniseries actually sends people to bed with no closure. You don't get you don't get catharsis. And then you go and you process in your subconscious, and there's a sense of no resolution. And then that goes on for a couple decades where people are like going to sleep with no sense of closure. And next thing you know, you're like, you got a whole culture that's prone to neurotic outbreaks and believing in you know, whatever the news is going to tell them.
No, you're right. And that's the C to F sharp. That's the dissonance that it's waiting to resolve, and it doesn't. So, wow, man.
Gabe, that might have been one of the most profound things I've ever, and you've said a lot of profound things over the years, but that might be the one. We lack, we are a culture without closure.
Right, man. Right. You know, for me in martial arts, I learned that, you know, the real high grade performers at the end of the game, they would say a prayer at the end and ground their energy at the foot of the instruments. And I was like, that is grace. That is grace, giving thanks at the end of the meal. And so I changed my game right then and there. I was converted. And, you know, I learned that, you know, that's actually what it's all about, is saying thanks even after you get your ass kicked, saying thanks for getting your ass kicked. You know what I mean? But then I started to just kind of see how we do engage in ritual and ceremony, all of us, in various ways. You know, in science they call it procedure, you know, but that's just ritual. But we don't close it off. You know, we don't give respect in the end and say, you know, thanks for kicking my ass. Yeah, pretty profound. Thank you.
And well, because George,
real quick shout out, thank you, Logan, for the super chat over on Rockfen. You the man, most consistent super chatter. Amazing. Yeah, people should join our Telegram group, and we'll circulate around again his awesome scope work too. Incredible stuff.
Cool.
And then I want to just hop on also on what you just said, Gabriel, that the closure thing. We talked about that with Carrie last week about opening sacred space, closing sacred space. And I'm finding it, or so far, I've actually been finding it challenging to do it. That at the end of the, it's almost like part of taking your time and not being in a rush, oddly enough. I've been noticing like, oh, wow, the ceremony, the tuning session was a few hours ago. And I'm just now remembering, maybe even the next day, I didn't close the space. Like it's easy to remember to give thanks, open it up, but closing it. And that is also about grounding and, you know, letting go of any of that moment and going into the next moment. There's something about that. And it's almost like we're in this sequelitis, resistant to the moment of closure. It's a big part of the culture. And I've been trying to remember that as well. And
that's a good neologism. That's a good neologism. I like it. Sequelitis.
George said too, with like the movies and the book endings, right? Like it's not just the minis, it's everything. But then you look at, like, to another degree, one of the things that's really difficult about relationships in general is very few people end relationships in a professional way. They just like disappear. They'll, like, you know, it's like you go from being someone's like one of the biggest parts of your life to now they treat you like a stranger. That's another thing. And so the more that happens to you in life, the more that's going to fuck you up emotionally, right? So it's like, you know, not to sound like someone who's like, oh, you got to be pious, whatever, but you need to be weary of like getting involved in relationships with people, like intimate relationships, because when they don't work out, that's like a huge void that takes a while to heal sometimes, you know, especially if you like really plan something, you know, and all of a sudden it doesn't work out. Like it can really sidetrack you.